Oops, did I drop that?
Derek, please. I just cleaned this floor.
You hear that? It begged.
I'm not here for trouble. Just my job.
Derek kicked the mop bucket.
Now it's dirty again. Clean it, you worthless old rag. Film it, Brooke. Film the trash on his knees. Faster, Grandpa. You smell like the dumpster you crawled out of.
Beg me to keep this job. Beg.
Stroke by patient stroke, while 40 phones laughed down at him.
60 years old, and that's your dream. Cleaning up after real men.
He gave them nothing. And no one noticed the ridge of callus across his palm. A scar earned not from mops, but from 20,000 mornings gripping cold steel. They had no idea what was sleeping in that hand. Iron Peak Gym opened at 5 in the morning. By 6, it was already loud. It was the biggest gym in the city. 2 floors of chrome and mirrors. 40,000 square feet of barbells, chalk dust, and ego. The kind of place where men came to be seen, and where being weak was the only real sin. Owen Turner had cleaned its floors for 3 years. He arrived before anyone else. He left after everyone had gone. Most members did not know his name. To them, he was just the old man with the gray cart and the quiet eyes. He liked it that way. He wanted to be invisible. Invisible men did not have to remember. But Iron Peak belonged to Derek Stone now, and Derek did not allow anyone to stay invisible for long. Derek was 26. He was the gym's golden boy, its biggest draw, its loudest voice. He had 200,000 followers and a supplement sponsor who paid him to flex on camera. Every rep he lifted became a video. Every video needed a villain. And Owen, silent and slow, was the easiest target in the building. "There he is," Derek announced that morning. "Our mascot." Brooke lifted her phone. Tara giggled beside her. The two of them followed Derek everywhere, filming everything, laughing on cue. "Watch this," Derek said. He walked to the loaded barbell on the platform. He stripped the plates and let them crash to the floor, one after another, rolling them into the walkway where Owen was sweeping. "Clean up," Derek called out. "Your favorite word." The plates were 45 pounds each. Owen set down his broom. He bent, lifted them one by one, and stacked them back on the rack. He did it without a sound. His movements were smooth, almost graceful, the weight rising in his hands like it weighed nothing. Nobody noticed that. They were watching Brooke's screen. "Look at him waddle," she laughed, pointing the camera. "Caption it, Janitor Cardio." Tara stood up and mimicked him. She hunched her back, dragged her feet, and shuffled across the floor with her arms hanging. The crowd by the dumbbells roared. "Do the voice!" someone shouted. "Do the old man voice!" "Just my job," Tara croaked, slow and trembling. "Just my job." They laughed until they had to hold the wall. Owen kept stacking plates. His face did not change. He had learned a long time ago that silence was the only armor no one could take from you. But there was one person in that gym who was not laughing. His name was Eli Carter. He was 16 years old, 90 pounds of nerves and elbows, and he came every morning before school. He wanted to be strong. He wanted it so badly it hurt to watch. And he was terrible at it. "Look who showed up," Derek said, turning on him. "The skeleton." Eli froze at the squat rack. The bar across his shoulders held only the empty weight of the steel, and even that made his knees shake. "Kid, you couldn't lift a sandwich," Derek said. "Why do you even come here?" "I'm trying to learn," Eli said quietly. "Learn somewhere else. You're embarrassing the floor." Brooke swung her camera toward him. "Smile, skeleton. You're going viral." Eli's face went red. His hands gripped the bar too tight, in the wrong place, his elbows flaring out behind him. He tried to drop into a squat and lost his balance. The empty bar clattered forward off his shoulders and rang against the safety pins. The gym laughed again. A different laugh this time. Crueler. "Pathetic," Derek said, walking away. "Both of you belong in the parking lot." Eli stayed under the rack, blinking hard, trying not to cry in front of 40 people. He bent to lift the bar back into place and could barely move it. And then a low voice spoke beside him, calm, steady, close enough that only he could hear. "Elbows down, bar on your back, not your neck. Drive the floor away with your heels." Eli looked up. It was the janitor. Owen had crossed the room with his cart, slow and unhurried, and stopped beside the rack as if he were only passing through. He was not looking at Eli. He was looking at the bar. "Try again," Owen said. "Slow. Breathe in first. Hold it. Then stand." Eli did not know why he listened. Maybe because it was the first kind voice he had heard in that building. He set his hands the way Owen said. He pulled his elbows down. He breathed in, held it, and stood. The bar came up clean, level, light. Eli's eyes went wide. That felt different. "That was right," Owen said. "Strength is just doing it right enough times." Then he picked up his broom and moved on, as if nothing had happened. But something had happened, and one man had seen it. Hank Wilson was 68 years old and had coached lifters for 40 of those years. He sat in the corner most mornings with a coffee, watching the young men chase numbers they did not understand. He had seen 10,000 people give cues at a squat rack. He had never seen anyone give one like that. It was not the words. It was the eyes. The way the old janitor had read the boy's whole body in a single glance. The way he named the exact fault before the boy even moved. The way he stood near the loaded bar, relaxed, the posture of a man who had spent his entire life around heavy steel and had stopped fearing it long ago. Hank set down his coffee. He watched Owen push the cart toward the far wall, shoulders rounded, head down, doing everything he could to disappear. But Hank had noticed his hands now, the forearms under the rolled sleeves thick as cables. The way he had stacked those 45-pound plates earlier, one in each hand, without bracing, without effort. Janitors did not move like that. Tired old men did not move like that. Only one kind of man moved like that. A man who had lifted more than anyone in this room could imagine, for longer than most of them had been alive. Hank stood up slowly. He walked to the front desk where the staff schedule hung on a clipboard. He ran his finger down the list of names until he found the cleaning crew. There was only one name there. O. Turner. Hank stared at it. Something cold and electric crawled up the back of his neck. He knew that name. He had heard it a long, long time ago, spoken with awe in a language of records and iron. It could not be. That man had vanished 30 years ago. That man was a ghost. He looked back across the gym at the janitor pushing his cart in silence, and his heart began to pound. Because if Hank Wilson was right about that name, then every single person laughing in that building was about to learn exactly who they had been spitting on. The next morning, Derek decided the janitor had gotten too comfortable. He had seen the moment at the squat rack. He had seen Owen lean in and whisper to the skeleton. And he had seen the boy's lift come up clean afterward. It bothered him in a way he could not name. The old man was supposed to be furniture. Furniture did not give advice. Furniture did not make the weak kid smile. So Derek waited until the floor was full. He waited until Brooke and Tara had their phones ready. He wanted an audience. Owen was mopping near the deadlift platform, the heavy end of the gym, where the loaded bars sat waiting under their stacks of black iron. He worked in slow lines, head down, minding the wet edge of the floor. "You're in my way, old man," Derek said. "1 minute," Owen answered. "Floor's still wet." "I didn't ask." Derek stepped forward and shoved him. It was not a tap. It was 2 hands on the chest, full force, the kind of push meant to put a man on the ground. Owen's wet shoes slid on the floor he had just cleaned. He went down hard, his hip striking the rubber, the mop clattering away across the platform. The gym went quiet for half a second. Then the phones came up. "Oh, he's down," Brooke laughed. "He's actually down." "Don't help him," Derek said, grinning at the camera. "Let's see if the mascot can get up on his own." Owen lay there a moment. Then he rolled to one knee. He planted a palm on the floor and rose, slowly, the way an old body rises, without drama and without complaint. He did not rub his hip. He did not look at Derek. He reached for the mop. "Aw, he's tough," Tara cooed. "Tough little janitor." Derek leaned close to Brooke's phone. "This is what happens when you forget your place," he told 200,000 strangers. "Stay humble, people." He posted it before lunch. By evening, it had 1 million views. The comments were not kind. Some were cruel. But a strange thing happened in the middle of all that cruelty. A few people began to ask a different question. Who shoves a 60-year-old janitor for fun? Who films it and laughs? The video Derek made to look strong was starting to make him look like exactly what he was. He did not notice. But someone above him did. Claire Bennett owned Iron Peak. She was 44, sharp, and she had built the gym from a single rented room into the biggest name in the city. Derek was her star. His sponsor money paid her rent. His following filled her floor. When his video crossed 2 million views and the wrong kind of comments started rolling in, she did the only thing she knew how to do. She protected the brand. She found Owen in the supply closet at closing time. "I'm going to be honest with you," she said. "You've become a problem." Owen looked up from the sink where he was rinsing a rag. "I cleaned the floor. He pushed me." "I know what happened. It doesn't matter what happened. What matters is that your face is now attached to a video that's making my gym look bad." She crossed her arms. "Members are uncomfortable. My sponsor is calling. I can't have this. So you're firing me. I'm telling you to keep your head down and stay out of Derek's way. Or yes, I'll have to let you go." She softened, just slightly. "It isn't personal. It's business." Owen wrung out the rag and hung it on the edge of the sink. "It's always personal to the person it happens to," he said. "But I understand." Claire left without another word. She told herself she had handled it. She told herself it was fair. She was wrong, and she would learn how wrong very soon. The breaking point came 2 days later, on a Friday, when the gym was at its fullest. Derek had a new sponsor rep visiting, a man in an expensive jacket who watched from the side with a clipboard. Derek wanted to perform. He had loaded his competition bar on the main platform, 390 pounds, more than anyone else in the building could touch. He cleaned it and pressed it overhead with a roar, and the crowd clapped, and the rep nodded and wrote something down. Then Derek saw Owen at the edge of the floor, quietly emptying a trash bin. "Hey, mascot," he called. "Come here." Owen did not move. "I'm talking to you. Everybody, look. The janitor thinks he's a coach now, whispering tips to the skeleton kid like he knows something." Derek slapped the loaded bar. The plates rang. "You like giving advice, old man? Then let's see it. Lift this, right now, in front of everyone." The gym hushed. 40 phones rose. "Lift my bar," Derek said, "or get out of my gym tonight and never come back. Those are your choices. Pick one." Owen stood there with the trash bag in his hand. He looked at the bar. He looked at the rep with the clipboard, at Claire frozen by the desk, at Brooke's camera, at Eli watching from the corner with terror in his eyes. And then, for the first time in 3 years, Owen Turner set down what he was carrying and walked to the center of the floor. The crowd parted for him. He stopped 6 feet from the bar and looked at Derek with a calm that did not belong in that room. "You want me to lift it," Owen said. "All right, but not for free." Derek laughed. "You're negotiating? You've got nothing." "I have 3 conditions," Owen said. His voice was quiet, but it carried. "Meet them, and I'll touch your bar. Refuse, and I'll walk out that door, and you'll never know." The rep with the clipboard leaned forward. Claire took a step closer. The gym had gone completely silent now. Even Brooke had stopped narrating. "1," Owen said. He raised a thick finger. "If I lift this, you apologize to that boy in the corner, out loud, in front of everyone you humiliated him in front of." Derek's grin flickered. 2, every video you made of me on my knees comes down tonight. All of them, from every account. And 3, Owen looked at Eli, then back at Derek. "From this day on, I coach whoever I want in this building, and no one stops me. Not you, not anyone." For a moment, Derek could not speak. The conditions were absurd. They were the demands of a man with leverage, and a janitor had no leverage. He was supposed to beg. He was supposed to shuffle out the door. Instead, he stood in the center of the floor like he owned it, waiting, while 200 people held their breath. "You're insane," Derek finally said. "You really think you can lift that?" "I think you're afraid I can," Owen said. "Or you'd have agreed already." The crowd made a low sound. The rep wrote something quickly. Derek's face went dark red, and he realized the trap he had walked into. If he said no now, in front of his sponsor, in front of everyone, he was the coward who backed down from an old man. "Fine," Derek snapped. "Fine. You lift it, clean, all the way overhead, and you get your little conditions. But when you fail, and you will fail, you're done here. Gone tonight. Deal?" "Deal," Owen said. He reached up and took hold of the zipper of his janitor's jacket, and as the worn fabric slid open, every laughing face in Iron Peak Gym was about to fall silent at the same time. The jacket came off slowly. Owen folded it once and set it on a bench, the way a man sets down something he has carried for a long time. Then he turned back to face the room, and the room forgot how to breathe. Under the gray janitor's shirt had been a body no one expected. Owen pulled the shirt over his head, and there it was. Shoulders like carved stone, a back broad and ridged with muscle that decades had hardened rather than softened, forearms thick as fence posts, scars on his hands and across one shoulder, the quiet record of a life spent under iron. He was 60 years old, and he was built like something out of a story. Brooke's phone lowered an inch. "What?" she said softly, "What is that?" Tara had stopped laughing entirely. Derek's grin held, but it had gone stiff at the edges. "So you've got muscles," he said. "Lots of old guys have muscles. Muscles don't move 390 overhead. Lift the bar, or get out." Owen did not answer him. He walked to the platform. He stood over the loaded barbell, 390 pounds of black iron, and he looked down at it the way a man looks at an old friend he has not seen in years. He rolled his shoulders. He shook out his wrists. He bent and pressed his palms flat against the floor, feeling it, reading it. Then he reached down and wrapped his scarred hands around the cold steel. The gym was silent enough to hear the chalk dust settle. Owen set his feet. He took one slow breath in, held it deep in his chest, and pulled. The bar broke off the floor like it had been waiting for him. It rose along his shins, past his knees, and then his hips drove forward, and the whole thing exploded upward. He dropped under it and caught it across his shoulders in a flawless front rack. 390 pounds racked clean, his elbows high, his spine straight. Someone in the crowd gasped out loud. Owen stood. The bar rose with him as if it weighed nothing. He paused for one heartbeat at the top, gathering himself, and then he dipped his knees and launched the bar overhead, locking it out at full arm's length above his head. 390 pounds. Clean and jerk. Done by the janitor. Done by the old man they had filmed on his knees that very week. For a long moment, nobody made a sound. Then the bar came down, and Owen set it on the platform with a control that was almost gentle, lowering all that iron without a single crash. And the silence broke into chaos. Phones that had come up to mock him were now filming something else entirely. Voices overlapped. People who had laughed an hour ago were pushing forward to see, but Owen did not look at any of them. He did not raise his arms. He did not look at Derek. He turned, walked off the platform, and crossed the floor to the corner where a skinny 16-year-old boy stood, with his mouth open and tears already running down his face. Owen put one heavy hand on Eli's shoulder. "That," he said quietly, "is what your body can learn to do. Not today, not this year, but it can learn if somebody teaches you right." Eli could not speak. He just nodded over and over, crying without shame now. And that was the image the whole gym would remember. Not the lift. The lift was the proof. But the thing that made grown men go quiet was the sight of the strongest person in the building walking past every camera to go comfort the weakest. Across the room, Hank Wilson had his phone out, and his hands were shaking. He had typed 2 words into the search bar. Owen Turner. He added one more. Weightlifting. The screen filled instantly. There were photographs. Old ones, grainy, from 30 years back. A younger Owen on a podium in a red singlet, a gold medal around his neck, his fist in the air. There were headlines in 3 languages. There were records, world records. A clean and jerk number that had stood untouched for 22 years, listed beside the name Owen Turner, 3-time world champion. And there was the nickname the sport had given him, printed under a photo of him mid-lift, his whole body a single line of force. The Mountain. Hank lowered the phone and looked across his own gym at the man comforting the crying boy, and his eyes filled. He had idolized this man as a young coach. He had shown his athletes Owen Turner's lifts on grainy tape and said, that is what perfect looks like. And for 30 years he had assumed the great Owen Turner was dead, because a man like that does not simply vanish. But he had not died. He had been mopping their floors. Hank walked toward him slowly, and when he reached him, the old coach did something no one expected. He stopped a few feet away, and he bowed his head. "It's you," Hank said, his voice cracking. "It's really you. I have watched your lifts 1,000 times. I have taught from them my whole life." He looked up, eyes wet. "Why are you cleaning floors, sir? Why are you here?" Owen was quiet for a long moment. The gym had gone still again, but a different kind of still. A listening kind. "Because this is where I could disappear," Owen said. He walked back to the bench where his folded jacket lay. He reached into the inside pocket and drew out something old and worn. It was a leather lifting belt, cracked with age, the leather darkened by decades of sweat. On the back, in faded gold stamping, were the letters that spelled a single word: Turner. He held it in both hands. "I won everything there was to win," Owen said. 3 world titles, records they said would never fall. I had it all. His thumb moved over the cracked leather. "And then I lost the only thing that ever mattered." The room waited. "I had a son," Owen said. "Daniel. He wanted to lift like his old man. He had the gift too, more than me maybe. And I pushed him. God help me, I pushed him the way the sport pushed me. Heavier, harder, no excuses." His voice stayed steady, but something underneath it did not. "One morning he loaded a bar I should never have let him touch. I was spotting him. I looked away for 1 second. He stopped. He did not have to finish. The silence finished it for him. After that, I couldn't stand the smell of chalk," Owen said. "I couldn't look at a barbell without seeing him, so I walked away from all of it. The titles, the cameras, my own name. I let the world think the mountain was gone." He looked up, and his eyes found Eli. "I told myself I'd never coach again, that I had no right to, not after what coaching cost my boy." Eli wiped his face. "Then why did you help me?" Owen looked at the skinny, frightened, hopeful kid in front of him, and for the first time in years, something in his face came open. "Because you reminded me of him," he said. "Standing under a bar, too big for you, scared, and wanting it anyway. And I realized something." He held up the old belt. "Walking away didn't honor my son. It just buried him deeper. Maybe the way to honor him is to make sure no other kid gets hurt the way he did. To teach it right. To teach it safe." He pressed the worn belt into Eli's hands. "Hold that for me," Owen said. "We start tomorrow, 5 in the morning, you and me. And I promise you this, I will never, ever let you load a bar your body isn't ready for. That's the only kind of coach I'll be." Eli held the belt to his chest like it was made of glass. "Yes, sir," he whispered. Around them, the gym had transformed. The cruelty had drained out of the air. Members who had laughed at the janitor now looked at the floor, ashamed. Some of them, quietly, began to delete the videos on their own phones without being told. Hank Wilson stepped forward again. "Let me help," he said. "Whatever you build here. I have 40 years, and I have given them to nothing that mattered. Let me give them to this." Owen looked at the old coach, and something passed between the two men, a recognition, a truce with the past. "All right," Owen said. "We'll teach them together." Claire Bennett watched all of it from the edge of the floor, and her stomach had turned to ice. She had threatened to fire this man 2 days ago. She had called him a problem. She had stood in a supply closet and told a 3-time world champion to keep his head down so her brand would look clean. The shame of it sat on her chest like a stone. But shame was not her only problem now. As the crowd buzzed and the videos of Owen's lift began racing across the internet far faster than the cruel ones ever had, Claire's phone lit up in her hand. It was Derek's sponsor. The man with the clipboard had already made his call, and the message on her screen made her blood run cold. Because the sponsor was not calling to celebrate the legend in her gym. He was calling to bury him. And he had already decided that the only way to save Derek was to prove that Owen Turner was a fraud. The sponsor's name was Grant Foster, and he had built an empire out of protecting his investments. His company, Apex Nutrition, paid Derek Stone a small fortune to be its face. Derek's image was Apex's image. And the night the video of an old janitor out lifting their champion went viral, Grant Foster did the math in about 30 seconds. A humiliated star sold no supplements. The legend had to be destroyed. He did not fly to the gym to congratulate anyone. He flew in to win. By the next morning, the story had flipped. It started with a single post from Derek's account, written for him by Apex's media team. It was careful. It was poison. It did not call Owen a liar outright. It just asked questions. How does a 60-year-old janitor lift a world record load with no warm-up? Why has no one heard of this man in 30 years? Convenient, isn't it, that the bar was already loaded by Derek and no one weighed those plates? Stay skeptical, people. Things are not always what they seem. It was nonsense. But nonsense travels fast when a rich man pays to push it. By noon, the narrative had a name. People were calling it the Iron Peak Hoax. Comment sections that had turned on Derek now turned again, this time on Owen. Strangers who had never lifted a barbell in their lives became experts overnight. The plates were lighter than they looked. The whole thing was staged to make Derek look bad. The old man was a paid actor, an attention grab, a fraud. The cruel videos came back, and now they had cruel captions. Owen watched none of it. He did not own a smartphone. He learned about it the way he learned about most things, slowly, from the faces of other people. Eli told him first, at 5 a.m, on their second day of training. The boy came in, pale and shaking, not from the cold, but from his phone. "They're saying you faked it," Eli said. "They're saying awful things. Coach, there are thousands of them." Owen looked at the boy's screen for a moment, then handed it back. "Words on a phone," he said. "Chalk your hands. We're here to lift." But it was not just words on a phone, and Owen knew it. That afternoon, the press arrived. A sports blog had picked up the hoax story, and then a bigger one. And then a camera crew was standing in the Iron Peak parking lot asking members whether the famous janitor was a liar. Apex had done its work. The question was no longer, is this man a legend? The question was, is this man a con? Grant Foster came inside at 3 o'clock, in his expensive jacket, with 2 assistants and a lawyer. He did not look at Owen. He went straight to Claire Bennett's office and closed the door. What he offered her was simple, and it was brutal. "Your gym is in the middle of a scandal," he said. "I can make it disappear. Apex will double its sponsorship. New equipment, a media campaign, your name everywhere. All you have to do is back our version of events." He slid a printed statement across her desk. "You sign this. It says the lift was unverified, that the janitor was let go for misconduct, and that Iron Peak does not endorse his claims. We make the old man the villain. Derek stays clean, and you get rich." Claire stared at the paper. "And if I don't sign it?" Grant Foster smiled.
Then I pull Derek, I pull my money, and I make sure every story about this gym is about the fraud you protected. Your choice, but choose fast. The cameras are already outside." He left the statement on her desk and walked out.
Claire sat alone for a long time. She thought about the rent. She thought about the 12 people on her payroll. She thought about the 11 years she had spent building this place from nothing. And she thought about a man in a supply closet, wringing out a rag, telling her quietly that it was always personal to the person it happened to. She did not sign it. But she did not throw it away either. She just sat there, frozen between her conscience and her livelihood. And that was its own kind of answer. Derek, meanwhile, had decided the old man needed a more personal warning. He found Eli alone in the locker room after training, while Owen was mopping the upper floor. He backed the boy against the lockers, close, his voice low. "Here's what's going to happen, skeleton," Derek said. "You're going to stop training with him. You're going to tell the cameras the lift looked staged. And if you don't, I will make sure you never set foot in a gym in this city again. I know everyone. You're nothing. He's nothing." He tapped Eli's chest. "Pick the winning side, kid." Eli's voice shook, but he did not look away. "He's the first person here who was ever kind to me," he said. "I'm not lying about him." Derek's face hardened. "Then you'll go down with him." He shoved the boy into the lockers and walked out. That night, after the gym closed, Owen found Eli still sitting on the locker room bench, the old leather belt in his lap, his eyes red. "He cornered you," Owen said. It was not a question. "He said he'd ruin me." Eli looked up. "Coach, maybe you should just leave. Disappear again, like before. They can't hurt you if they can't find you. This is my fault. If I'd never lifted that bar, none of this would have started." Owen sat down beside the boy. For a while he said nothing. He turned the cracked belt over in his hands, the way he always did when the past was close. "Let me tell you what I learned the hard way," he finally said. "Running doesn't keep you safe. It just changes who pays the price." He looked at Eli. "When I quit, I told myself I was protecting people from my mistakes. The truth is, I was protecting myself from my pain. And while I hid for 30 years, how many kids loaded bars too heavy with no one to stop them? How many got hurt because the one man who knew better was busy disappearing?" He set the belt in Eli's hands again. "I ran once," Owen said. "I am not going to run from a man in a nice jacket who tells lies for money. Not this time. Not when a boy I'm proud of is standing in the fire because of me." Eli's eyes filled. "But how do you fight them? They have cameras, lawyers, millions of people. You have a mop." Owen almost smiled. "They have a story," he said. "I have the truth. And the truth has one thing their story never will." He stood, and for a moment the old champion was fully there, filling the room. Truth can be proven. Lies can only be repeated. The next morning, Owen did something he had not done in 30 years. He asked Hank Wilson to make some calls. Somewhere, in a box, in his closet, Owen still had it all. The competition records, the official Federation logbooks, the names of the referees who had certified his lifts, the old training partners, some of them famous now, who had stood beside him when he set marks no one had touched since. The proof of who he was had not vanished. It had only been waiting, like the man himself, for a reason to come back. "If they want to question whether I can lift," Owen told Hank, "then let's not argue with them. Let's invite the whole world to watch, under any rules they choose, with any judge they trust, with every plate weighed in front of the cameras." He looked at the old coach. Set it up. Make it public. Let Grant Foster bring his own officials. I'll lift whatever they put in front of me, and there won't be one thing left to lie about." Hank grinned for the first time in days. "You're talking about a sanctioned exhibition, certified judges, live. You'd be putting your name on the line at 60 years old in front of everyone." "My name's already on the line," Owen said. "I'd just rather defend it with iron than with words." Hank made the calls. By that evening, it was arranged, and the news of it spread faster than the hoax ever had. The famous janitor had answered his accusers not with a denial, but with a challenge. One public lift. Verified. Certified. Every plate weighed on camera. If he was a fraud, the world would see it. And if he was not, then everyone who had laughed and lied and smeared him would have to watch the proof with their own eyes. Grant Foster accepted immediately, because he was certain the old man was bluffing. He brought his own Federation officials, his own scale, his own cameras. He was sure Owen would crack under the lights, fail the lift, and hand him the humiliation he needed. He was wrong about almost everything. But there was one thing he was right about. Everything now came down to a single morning, a single loaded bar, and one 60-year-old man who had not competed in 3 decades, standing in front of the entire world with his whole name riding on whether he could still do the impossible. And the night before that lift, alone in the empty gym, Owen wrapped his son's old belt around his waist for the first time in 30 years. And he was not sure his body would forgive him for what he was about to ask of it. They held it on a Saturday at noon on the main platform of Iron Peak Gym. Grant Foster had wanted cameras, and now there were cameras everywhere. He had wanted officials, and 3 certified Federation judges stood at the edge of the platform in their blazers. He had wanted a public spectacle that would end the legend of Owen Turner once and for all. He got his spectacle. It just did not end the way he planned. The gym was packed beyond capacity. Members, reporters, strangers who had followed the story online, all pressed shoulder to shoulder around the platform. Brooke and Tara were there, quiet now, their phones recording for a different reason. Claire Bennett stood near the front, the unsigned statement still sitting in her office drawer. Eli sat in the first row, with the old leather belt across his knees. In the center of it all sat the bar. Every plate had been weighed in front of the cameras, one by one, on Apex's own certified scale. The judges had confirmed each number out loud. There was no trick left to claim, no doubt left to sell. What stood loaded on that platform was real iron, and a great deal of it. The head judge announced the weight so everyone could hear. 412 pounds. Clean and jerk. A murmur ran through the crowd. It was a number beyond what Derek had ever touched. It was a number beyond what almost any man alive could touch. And they were asking a 60-year-old janitor to lift it under the harshest lights of his life. Before he stepped up, Hank Wilson did something Grant Foster had not expected. He had spent 3 days making calls, and the calls had answered. On a screen above the platform, Hank played 30 seconds of old footage. A younger Owen Turner, in a red singlet, on a world stage, driving a staggering load overhead while a stadium roared. Beneath it, the official record, certified, his name, the date, the mark that had stood for 22 years. Then, one by one, voices came through the speakers. Former champions. Athletes the crowd recognized, some of them legends in their own right, recorded that very week. Each said a version of the same thing. Owen Turner was the greatest I ever saw. Owen Turner was the reason I started. If Owen Turner says he can lift it, watch. The hoax died right there, before Owen had even touched the bar. You cannot fake a Federation record. You cannot pay an entire generation of champions to lie on camera. The truth, the way Owen had promised, only needed to be shown. Grant Foster's face had gone gray. Owen stepped onto the platform. He wore a plain singlet now, and his son's belt around his waist, the cracked leather dark against his skin. He stood over the bar in total silence. He did not look at the cameras. He did not look at Foster. He looked at the iron. And then he closed his eyes for one breath, and anyone close enough could see his lips move around a single word. Daniel. He bent. He gripped the cold steel. He set his feet. And then Owen Turner pulled 412 pounds off the floor like the years had never happened. The bar rose fast and clean, and his hips drove it up, and he dropped beneath it and caught it in the rack with his elbows high and his back like a pillar. The crowd surged to its feet. He stood, the whole load rising with him, and for one breath he held it at his chest, gathering everything he had left. Then he split his feet, dipped, and threw it overhead, 412 pounds, locked out at arm's length above a 60-year-old head. Steady, motionless, real. The three judges raised their hands. White lights, good lift. A clean, certified, undeniable lift. The gym exploded. It was a sound Iron Peak had never made before. A roar that shook the mirrors. Hundreds of people screaming and weeping and pounding the floor. The bar came down under Owen's control, gentle as ever, and the moment it touched the platform, the place came apart with joy. Owen did not celebrate. He stood up straight, breathing hard, and he let the noise wash over him. Then he raised one hand, and slowly the gym went quiet. Because when the mountain asks to speak, people listen. "I'm not here to prove I'm strong," Owen said. His voice was low and rough, and it carried to every corner. "You already saw that. Strong is easy. Strong is just iron and time." He looked out over the faces, the ones who had laughed and the ones who had believed. "I came back for a different reason. A few weeks ago, a boy stood in this gym, scared, under a bar too heavy for him, and the whole room laughed. I know that boy. I was that boy once, and I spent 30 years hiding because the world taught me that the weak get crushed and the loud get crowned." He shook his head slowly. "That's the lie. The strongest thing a person can do is stay. Stay when it's hard. Stay kind when cruelty is easier. Stay standing for someone who has no one standing for them." He found Eli in the crowd. "You don't measure a man by what he can lift. You measure him by who he lifts up." I forgot that for 30 years. A skinny kid with shaking hands reminded me. And I will spend whatever I have left making sure no child in this place is ever laughed at again. The gym was silent for one heartbeat. Then it thundered. Owen stepped off the platform into a sea of outstretched hands. But across the floor, two people were not cheering. Grant Foster was already moving toward the exit, phone to his ear, trying to salvage what could not be salvaged. The cameras he had brought to bury Owen had broadcast the old man's triumph to millions instead. By that evening, Apex Nutrition's own footage would be the clip that made Owen Turner a hero to the entire world. Foster had paid to build the stage for the very man he wanted to destroy. And Derek Stone stood frozen at the edge of it all. He had watched the whole thing. He had watched the footage, heard the champions, seen the lift, heard the speech. And somewhere in the middle of it, the story he told himself about who he was had quietly collapsed. He was not the king of this gym. He was the loud boy who had filmed a legend on his knees and called it content. His phone buzzed in his hand. He looked down at it. It was Apex. A single line from Grant Foster's office. Your contract is terminated, effective immediately. We are issuing a statement distancing the brand from your conduct. The sponsorship was gone. The money was gone. The followers who had cheered his cruelty were already turning, the comments flipping under his videos in real time, thousands of strangers asking how anyone could treat an old man the way he had. Derek looked up from the screen, pale, and found himself standing alone in a crowd that had loved him a week ago. Then Owen's 3 conditions came back to him, the ones he had laughed at and agreed to, certain he would never have to pay. Apologize to the boy. Take down the videos. Let the old man coach whoever he wanted. A deal was a deal. 200 witnesses had heard him make it. Slowly, every eye in the gym began to turn toward Derek Stone, waiting to see whether the fallen champion would keep his word or prove, once and for all, exactly what kind of man he really was. And in that silence, with the whole world watching and nothing left to hide behind, Derek opened his mouth to say the words he had sworn he would never have to say. Derek Stone walked to the front of the crowd, and he stopped in front of a 16-year-old boy. For a moment, he could not speak. 200 people watched. The cameras still rolled. Everything he had been, the followers, the sponsor, the swagger, was already gone, and all that was left was the choice in front of him. Eli, he said, his voice cracked, I was cruel to you. I made you feel like nothing in front of everyone, because it made me feel like something. That was wrong. You came here every day and worked harder than I ever did, and I punished you for it. He swallowed. I'm sorry. To you and to Mr. Turner. I'm sorry. It was not a grand speech. It was small and shaking and real. Eli looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. Okay, the boy said quietly. Derek took out his phone, and in front of everyone, he deleted the videos. One by one. The shove, the mop bucket, the cruel captions. He let the crowd watch each one disappear. Then he set the phone down on the platform, looked at Owen, and walked out of Iron Peak Gym without another word. He was not seen there again. But Eli would say, years later, that he hoped Derek found a gym somewhere that made him better than that one had. Claire Bennett went into her office, took the unsigned statement out of her drawer, and tore it in half. Then she came back out and found Owen by the platform, coiling the chalk rag he still carried out of habit. She stood in front of the 3-time world champion she had once threatened to fire, and she did not try to hide from it. I told you to keep your head down, she said. I called you a problem. I was a coward, and you were the most honest man in my building. She took a breath. I can't undo that, but I can offer you something if you'll take it. Be my head coach. Run this gym the way it should have been run from the start. Whatever you want to build here, build it. Owen was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. I'll take it, he said. On one condition. Claire almost laughed. Of course there's a condition. Mornings belong to the kids who can't pay, Owen said. The skinny ones, the scared ones, the ones everybody else laughs out the door. They train here free, with me, before the floor opens. That's the deal. Done, Claire said. Easily done. And so it began. They called it the Daniel Turner Program, and Owen never explained the name to the children, only to Hank, once, quietly. Every morning at 5, before the mirrors filled with men chasing numbers, the doors opened for a different kind of athlete. The small, the overlooked, the ones who flinched when a barbell rang. Owen taught them the way he had once refused to teach anyone. Slow, safe, never a pound more than the body was ready for. He stood under every bar with them, his scarred hands ready, his voice low and certain. Elbows down, breathe in, drive the floor away. You are stronger than yesterday. That is all strength ever is. Hank Wilson coached beside him. 40 years of knowledge finally poured into something that mattered. Word spread. Parents drove across the city to bring children who had been told they did not belong in a gym. Owen turned none of them away. And Eli Carter became the first of them to fly. 9 months after the morning Owen lifted 412 pounds, Eli Carter stepped onto a platform at a regional youth meet. He was still lean, but he was not skinny anymore, and his hands did not shake. Around his waist he wore an old leather belt, cracked with age, the gold letters worn but still legible. Turner. Owen had given it to him the night before. I held it for my son, Owen had said, pressing it into the boy's hands the way he had once before. Now you hold it. Not because you have to lift like him, because you have to lift like you. Go show them what right looks like. Eli set a personal record that day. He won his weight class. And when the judges raised their white lights, he did not look at the scoreboard. He looked into the crowd, found a 60-year-old man with tears running openly down his face, and pointed at him with both hands. The whole arena followed the boy's gaze to the old coach in the stands, and they rose to their feet for a man most of them did not recognize, simply because a child had loved him enough to point. Owen wept without shame. For Eli, for the program, for the 30 years he had spent in the dark, and for the boy named Daniel who had started all of it, whose name now lived on a door where frightened children learned they were enough. The video of Owen's lift had made him famous. Offers came, endorsements, books, a federation seat, money he had never imagined. He turned almost all of it down. He had everything he wanted, and it fit inside a single building that opened its doors at 5 in the morning. There was one more thing he did, and only Hank ever saw it. Late one evening, after the children had gone home and the floor had emptied, Owen took a mop from the supply closet. He did not have to. He was the head coach now. He had a staff. But he filled the bucket, and he walked out to the main platform, the same tiles where a young man had once kicked dirty water across his shoes and called him worthless. He cleaned the floor slowly, the way he always had, stroke by patient stroke. Hank watched from the doorway. You don't have to do that anymore, you know. Owen kept mopping. He looked up, and on his weathered face was something Hank had not seen there in all the months he had known him. A small, settled, peaceful smile. I know, Owen said. That's why I want to. He wrung out the mop, and under the quiet lights of the gym he had cleaned in silence for 3 years, the mountain finished the floor, content at last, exactly where everything had begun. Okay, real talk for a second. I almost skipped this one, An old janitor, a loud gym bro. I thought I knew the ending, but the part that wrecked me wasn't the lift. It was a man who lost his son, buried himself for 30 years, and still came back to stand under the bar for someone else's kid. That's the thing about strength. It was never the weight. It's who you pick up on your way through the pain. So if life ever made you go quiet, this is your sign. The world still needs what you buried. If this hit you, share it with someone who forgot how strong they are. Drop a comment about who lifted you up, and subscribe for more stories that matter.